not looking good for Remo Stars as Npfl fined them 8 million naira, and of course they have been banished from Ekong. They will now play their remaining games at Ekong's Salami Stadium in Ibadan. And of course, we'll definitely be seeing the El Clasico. I call it the El Clasico in the Premier League, talking about Arsenal versus Manchester United this weekend. On that note, I say welcome to Sport on Enterprise TV 7. We are sporting from the four corners of the world are delivered at its best. If you are joining for the first time, please do it to follow us across all our social media platforms at Enterprise TV 7. My name is John Olasukomi. Join me and let's ride together. Joining me virtually today is Taiwo Ibrahim, making a return back to Sport Talk. Taiwo, welcome back to Sport Talk.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be on the show again.
All right. Good to hear from you once again, Taiwo. You know how we do it on Sport Talk. We always start with local football. We'll be starting with the Npfl. Remo Stars have been charged by the Nigerian Premier Football League, Npfl, for multiple breaches of the league's framework and rules following crowd disturbances during their March 20 fixture against Ikorodu City on January 14, 2026. Taiwo, it is no longer a news that they have been banished from Ekong. They will play in Ibadan. How do you think this will definitely affect struggling Remo Stars? They've been struggling all season. They struggled a lot in the first stanza of the league, and now they will not be playing at the Ekong Stadium for the remaining remaining games in the Npfl. Do you think this will definitely affect them this season?
Well, normally it's normal when they're playing again. When they're playing at home, that it makes when you're playing when you're over time they've not been at the Kenneth Stadium because of the invasion. So now they went back there last week and they won. Unfortunately, they've been banned and they've been fined also by the big body. When it comes to, I believe the Npfl, this thing is just like a cancer that has been for It happens every season, if not every match day. We only see one or two crowd troubles in the league. I think our football fans need education. They need a lot of education. It's not that when we play at home, we have to win every time.
Education in what sense, or orientation? Which one? You're talking about education?
Maybe education was a bit too big for the contest, but they need to be spoken to. They need to be they need to know that football is not a do or die affair.
Yes, of course.
But I know Remo Stars, they are not usually. They're looking for one of the most disciplined teams in the league. Remo Stars are not one of them, but there are times that the fans, the team are struggling. They are in the lower rungs of the table. They are not doing that respect from a defending champion. So apparently that's the frustration of getting to the fans.
Yes, of course.
To do what they do. It's not acceptable. You don't in the 21st century, you don't do something like that. It's a bad publicity. But for Remo Stars, playing in Ibadan is going to be the first one for them because the fans will not connect to them like their fans in Ekong. So that's the price you pay. And your fans being unruly from your fans also trouble. But I believe hopefully they will not go on relegation this season because it's not looking good for them. If you are playing at home, it's another advantage. But you are not playing at home, it's going to be a tough one for them to do. I want to see how they recover from this.
All right. Of course, this weekend we'll be playing against Queen Khalifa. Let's take a look at other results. Katsina United versus Plateau United. Academy Warriors will host Ikorodu City. Barawa FC versus Bayelsa. Remo Stars versus Queen Khalifa. Enugu Rangers will host Warri Wolves. Abia Warriors versus Nasarawa United. Shooting Stars versus Bendel Insurance. Wiki Tourists versus Kano Pillars. Niger Tornadoes will host Enyimba Football Club of Aba. Away from local football, let's move straight to foreign football. Of course, we'll be starting with the English Premier League. I call this El Clasico of England. Arsenal versus Manchester United is a fixture that has lost its luster since the days when they were scrapping for Premier League titles with such ferocity that clashes between the sides inevitably reach boiling points. Taiwo Ibrahim, do you think that, of course, Arsenal versus Manchester United has really declined? Because I remember, like, under the tutelage of Ferguson and of course Arsene Wenger. I remember like 9 years they both shared a Premier League. United won 6, Wenger won 3 from 96 to 2004. That is United that we used to know, and that is of course Arsenal that we used to know. And you all know Arsenal, you know the story. Since 2004 they've not won the league. Of course. Do you think it has really declined? Arsenal versus Manchester United.
Obviously, there's been a decline, especially for Manchester United. Where it was for both. There was a time Arsenal were in the Belgium, they were struggling. Now, over the last 5 years, they've picked, maybe let's say 3 years, they've picked up to be one of the contenders in the Premier League. But in the last 5 years, after Wenger left, from the era of Emery, even for the first 2-3 years of Arteta, they were struggling before they began to pick themselves up. So, the rivalry that we used to know between both sides seems to have mellowed down over the years, because Manchester United have refused to come up. They've gone down, almost out. But this time around, there seems to be an iota of hope for them. Currently, Arsenal are the favourite for that game. If they're playing against Arsenal now, they are one of the most informed. If not, if you count 3 best teams in Europe right now, Arsenal should be among one of the 3. If not the number 1. Because they are topping the Premier League, topping the Champions League log.
I feel it is between Arsenal and Bayern Munich fighting for that number 1.
Exactly. So we cannot find any other team that can be raising from those 2 teams. So kudos to Arsenal, they've been doing well. Now we've always been saying that December is always difficult for them and January. Now they're going to navigate that December and January competitively well. With no issue. They are still in the FA Cup, they are still in the Carling Cup, they are still in the Champions League. Also,
come on, don't talk about.
So we know that they seem to have turned a new league this time, but are they going to be able to keep it to the end of the season, to the business end of the season? That's the question for another. But it looks like this is a different Arsenal. This is a team with some sort of there's squad depth now. There's no injuries don't longer disturb them. This is a team that can afford to bench Eze for 6 games without playing him, and they'll still do well, and they are still winning their games and not consider too much of goals. So, but you see, Manchester United side, Sally came in the first game against Man City. Fantastic performance. All the players played in the right position. We got back to 4-man defense, and we saw a Manchester United side that we've not seen. We never saw that kind of Manchester United all through.
I'm in period.
I didn't see them play that way. The players played for the badge. They know that the coach in charge and the former player gave his all for the team. So they have no option as to give their all for the team. They are already down, maybe not out, of course, out of the competition, the local competitions, FA Cup and Carrick'S Cup. But no, the only thing they can play for is proud and get a place in the Champions League. So it's going to be a tough game. Beating Man City is going to boost their confidence. And Arsenal, of course, we know that they are riding high, but it's going to be a tough game. This game looks like it's a rivalry, but not a derby game. It's a rivalry. In a rivalry game, sometimes you cannot predict how it will go. But based on current form, you want to go for Arsenal. Based on Manchester United last performance, you want to feel that if they turn up, the way they turned up against Man City, if Arsenal fail to show up, I think you want to go for Manchester United. But I believe that game might end in a draw. If Man United came, if they show the same form they showed against Man City, it's going to be difficult for them to beat, for Arsenal to beat them.
All right, I thank you for that one. Let's take a look at other fixtures. West Ham United versus Sunderland, Fulham will host Brighton. Of course, the likes, the Nigeria Trio will definitely be part of this one. The Samuel Chukwu is a Calvin Bass, and of course, Alex Iwobi. Brighton is in problem. Come on, Burnley versus Tottenham, Manchester City versus Wolverhampton Wanderers. Taiwo, let's talk about Erling Haaland. Erling Haaland has failed to score in 7 consecutive games, and of course, at the Etihad Stadium this weekend, he will be playing against Wolverhampton Wanderers. Do you think he will definitely end his goal drought this weekend?
Well, it's a good opportunity for him to end his drought. I mean, it's unlikely that you see Haaland go 7 games without scoring. But that's how football is. Sometimes you get things going on well for you. Sometimes you struggle to get your form. It's a normal thing. That's why even those games, Master have only won just 2 games in their last 2 games in 2026. So you know that when Arnold is struggling, Man City are going to struggle. If you cannot bind in the goals, the problem for them, they can't score goals. That's why the team too is losing games. That's why they seem to have gone down in the title race. So, but against the bottom team in the Premier League, we want the chances to score in that game. Of course, you know that Man City are the favorite. There's room to bounce back in that game. Alan doing 7 games unbeaten is surprising, especially at this stage of the season where you feel like teams want to consolidate on their first half performance and see where they go from there. But I believe we might end that match against Wolves, and I expect Man City to win that game.
All right, Bournemouth we host Liverpool, Crystal Palace versus Chelsea. There is this rumor in the camp of Chelsea concerning Cole Palmer, a shock move back to Manchester City. Is there something behind the closed door that we don't know? Talking about, the new coach of Chelsea, Liam, and of course Cole Palmer, Taiwo.
Well, there's nothing, at least as far as I know, there's nothing. It's just normal. We are in January transfer window. It's normal for the rumors to come. I don't think Palmer will leave Chelsea and go to Man U at this stage. It doesn't make any professional sense. We're leaving the team as given to a dead team.
Not Man U, Manchester City.
No, it's Man U. It's not Man City.
He's been linked to City too. He's been linked to City.
I think this is linked to City. It's understandable. Of course, you know that City are still on the rise. But you cannot go from Chelsea to Man U. It's almost like going from Japan to 5. One is even better than the other. One is even better than the other. But if it's for City, it's understandable. We all know that he grew up at Manchester Academy. From the academy, there will still be some level of attachment to the club. Now Chelsea seems to be a team that doesn't know where they are going. The board don't know what they want to do. So the players will not be. If you are a player and you want to really win in a stable environment, you may not consider, if you have Chelsea and Man City, you want to choose Man City because you know they are stable. They will go for bigger players, they will die for the league, they will contend for the titles. So if he's being linked to the move to Man City, it's a good one for him. I believe if the offer is right. And another thing is that Chelsea will not sell him less than what they bought him for. And they will sell him for a huge amount of money. And Man City willing to pay, I know they won't sell him for nothing less than £100 million. Man City will be willing to pay £100 million for him. For someone that is currently struggling with injury, time with her. But a move to City will be good for him professionally. So
are you saying Chelsea is bigger than Manchester United? Because you just said it's like moving from fry pan to fire. So no.
Currently, so they are better than Manchester United.
I didn't get that, Taiwo.
Currently, Chelsea are the better team.
Okay, all right. I agree with you.
They are the world champions.
I agree with you on that one. All right. Of course, let's take a look at other fixtures. Newcastle United versus Aston Villa, Brentford versus Nottingham Forest, and of course, the big game, the biggest of them all, Arsenal versus Manchester United. Away from England, let's move straight to Spain, England, Bundesliga, and of course, French Ligue 1. We'll be starting with the La Liga. With La Liga, Real Madrid roared back to life this week, led by a superb Vinicius Junior, who is looking to confirm his own resuscitation and that of his team at Villarreal on Saturday, 24th January 2026 in La Liga. Xabi Alonso left, and of course, Vinicius Junior shone in the Champions League. Do you think, let's say, Xabi Alonso, and we know from the day one that they didn't get along, and do you think that really affected Vinicius Junior under Xabi Alonso?
Well, before Alonso came in, Vinicius has been struggling, especially when he lost that Ballon d'Or. Since he lost that award, he's not really been the Vinicius that we knew. So Alonso coming in, preferring his own style, preferring Mbappe, and preferring to keep the team will of course cause issues between them. We know that, and also his time, also Alonso's time at Real Madrid, we didn't see eye to eye with Vinicius. Coaches come in and they have their preferred style. They have what they want the people to play. So unfortunately, both Alonso and Vinicius could not get along. And the way it is in football is that usually the coach will be the one to go for the players, especially when performance on the pitch are not doing justice to what you are doing. No matter how tactical you are, if your team is not winning, you are doing the nonsense, as we used to say. So if that was what affected Alonso, he could not handle the ego in that Real Madrid. If you see, when you are coaching a team as big as Real Madrid, I saw something that one of the players said this morning that I think it was Guy Bay. If you are coaching a team like Real Madrid, you need to be a manager. Move from a coach to be a manager. You have to be able to manage their ego. Because if you have a Bellingham in your team, have a Vinicius, have an Mbappe in your team. All the players have different egos. They want to be in charge. They want to be the first name on the list. So, how do you think the likes of Ancelotti coped with it? Ancelotti didn't have too much of tactical things. All he did was just play according to the players' play. And then keep one or two things, and they all did well. Once the players are happy, they're willing to figure out a country. If you have too much of practice, you will confuse the player. And if you are not winning, then there will be problems. So I believe Vinicius was out of form, and we also didn't do enough. We saw some of the things that happened when he was competed against Barcelona and he reacted. He didn't cover himself in glory. Then that was why Alonso couldn't laugh, because there was a time he had to accuse the board that they are protecting the players against him. So if you are coaching a team and you don't seem to have the support of your board against the players, you cannot win that battle. You surely lose that battle. So that's what happened. And Vinicius is gradually getting back into his form. If he can continue like that, it's going to be good for Real Madrid, because they are getting to the business part of the season where they need to consolidate whatever form they've had for the best time. And it's good that they are just 1 point behind Barcelona in the league. So everything is still open, and we see where we go from there.
All right, of course, if they get to, because they'll be playing before Barcelona, if they get to win, they will definitely go back to the summit, and they will not have to wait till Barca versus Oviedo. Let's take a look at other fixtures. Levante versus Elche, Vallecano versus Osasuna, Sevilla versus Athletic Club, Villarreal will host Real Madrid, Atletico Madrid versus Mallorca, Barca versus Oviedo, Real Sociedad versus Celta Vigo, Alaves versus Real Betis. And in Syria, we have Inter, we host Pisa, Como versus Torino, Fiorentina versus Cagliari, Lecce versus Lazio, Sassuolo, we host Cremonese, Atalanta versus Parma, Genoa versus Bologna, Juventus versus Napoli. Taiwo, Juventus versus Napoli. Do you think this will definitely determine Scudetto this season?
Sorry, I didn't get that.
I mean, Juventus versus Napoli. Do you think this will definitely determine this Scudetto this season?
Of course, it's a tough game. Between both Napoli defending champions, Juventus know them as one of the biggest boys in the Serie A, but presently the form has not really been it's not really been interesting. But at least they are still fifth on the league, but they are not really close to the title contenders in the league. And Napoli defending champions, they want to win the league again the second time. And then there's Conte. We know how Conte handles the team. He wants to win every time. But currently, I see that as a top goal, Napoli playing away, Juventus at home. So it's very hard to decide. Right now, from the first to the fourth, Juventus are in fifth. Remo are in fourth. They cannot afford to drop any points in these games. But whether they like it or not, one of them will drop points. They reach Napoli, but Juventus will take them close to Napoli, and you know what that means. And the Napoli also, they cannot afford to go further down. Taking other Inter Milan and AC Milan, they are going neck to neck for the title. So for me, I think I'm calling for I want to go for Napoli because Juventus have been going out of hope in the league this season. So you don't know the kind of Juventus that will turn up. But they are playing at home. The support of the fans really help them. But I think I'm going to be going for Napoli. If not again for Napoli, I will go for a draw for both.
Okay. All right, spot on. Napoli to win against Juve. Will be here on Monday. All right, inform Roma versus AC Milan, and of course in Germany, Bundesliga, Bayern Munich versus Augsburg, Heidenheim versus Leipzig, Mainz will host Wolfsburg, Leverkusen versus Bremen, Frankfurt versus Hoffenheim, Union Berlin versus Dortmund, Borussia Mönchengladbach will host Stuttgart, Freiburg versus Cologne. In France, French Ligue 1 fixtures, Auxerre will host Paris Saint-Germain, Rennes versus Lorient, Le Havre versus Monaco, Olympique de Marseille will host Lens, Nantes versus Nice, Brest versus Toulouse, Paris FC versus Angers, Metz versus Lyon, Lille versus Strasbourg. And that is how much we can take on Sport on Enterprise TV 7. Endeavor to subscribe and click notification bell to get notified of all alerts. Follow us across our social media platforms at Enterprise TV 7. Like, share, and engage on all content. Visit our website at www.enterprisetv.com for all the news you can use, the inclusives, and the live updates. Taiwo Ibrahim has been given on the show today. Taiwo?
Thank you for having me, and I hope that Napoli will be Juventus so that you can have fun, really.
Don't talk about it. Just because you lose. All right. My name remains John Olasukami. See you next time.